Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cape Wrath Ultra webinar, How to Stay on Course When the Path Disappears. So I am Olivia Jackson. I work at Ourea Events. I'm joined by my colleagues Duncan Archer and Ian Stewart. Ian is actually a previous Cape Wrath Ultra winner in 2021. He is a professional mountaineer and climbing instructor, founder of Trail Running Scotland, who actually do our recce's for the Cape Wrath. And we've actually managed to nab him as our course ops manager for Ourea Events. And we've got Duncan Archer as well. Duncan is a 3-time winner of the OMM Elite, multiple winner of the LAMM, a British Orienteer team. He's going to beat us all in the Kendall Urban Orienteering on Wednesday. And he also works at Ourea Events. So I am going to firstly just kick us off with why we decided to do this webinar. So I don't know if anyone has actually seen on the BBC News, I'll pop it in the chat in a second, about the BBC article about the 76-year-old man who actually got lost walking from Glenfinnan to Knoydart, and he wandered around the Scottish wilderness for 8 days before being rescued. And I thought, that is exactly our trail going through that. So why don't we do a little bit on navigation and route planning to kind of showcase how to not do that. So I'll pop that in the chat if anyone wants to have a look, but I'm going to hand it over to Ian, who's prepared a little something before we dive into a little Q&A chat. And then if anyone has any questions, please just pop it in the chat and then we can ask those at the end. On you go, Ian.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting story, that that tale of getting lost. I think when you start reading into it a little bit more, there's a little bit more to it than just having not navigated properly. I think he failed to also look at a weather forecast. Very quickly, he's talking about rivers in spate and wading through deep streams and all sorts of things. So yeah, the Cape Wrath Trail shouldn't really be too difficult to navigate in compared with some other events in the grand scheme of things. It's not the West Highland Way. It's not a great big massive smooth footpath the whole way, but the route does follow the sort of line of least resistance through the mountains. So it predominantly does follow the main the sort of main line of the valleys. It's not up high on exposed mountain plateaus where you're following your compass around all over the place. It's certainly not an orienteering event, much to Duncan's disappointment. I'm sure that would be quite a long orienteering event, wouldn't it? 400k of that. You'd love to organise that.
Epic.
80% of the trail of our route does follow some sort of recognised trail, whether it's a sort of vehicle track or a footpath. So there's only 20% of the course where there's no mapped path. But even those bits, when you actually start looking at the map and doing your homework, you'll see they do follow sort of logical navigational features like the river or ridge lines, or anywhere where we are up a little bit higher. Liv, could we get the slide up, please? Is that there somewhere?
Sure thing.
So the question of, you got it? There we go. The question of how you are going to navigate your way between Fort William and the lighthouse at Cape Wrath is a very individual sort of question to answer, really. There are lots of different combinations of techniques and sort of styles of navigation that people might employ along the way. If you're thinking, can I just follow my watch all the way? Well, then the answer is probably yes. Lots of people do every year. Hundreds of people with absolutely no navigational ability at all have successfully completed this event, so it is definitely possible. Is that the best way of doing it? Then I would say definitely not. So the key to having a more successful week really is in about what you do before the event rather than when you're actually on the event itself. So actually doing your homework and looking at the event map, looking at the route, and getting that extra layer of information that you're not going to get from your watch. You're going to have to click forward for me, Liv, please. So here is an excerpt from day 2 of the route. So this is the area that our lost walker was wandering around in for a few days. So yeah, just coming through from Glenfinnan towards Neudat on day 2 of the trail. So if you've not spent a lot of time looking at maps, it can be a little bit daunting when you're looking at the trail here and looking at the map and trying to work out what it's actually going to feel like to stand there. But there's a few key bits that just by spending some time looking at it, you'll become much more familiar with. So starting at the bottom right of this map, traveling through to the west, you can see initially there the footpath, the trail, as we're following it, highlighted by the orange there, starts on big thick dashed lines. So that's a track the vehicle should be able to drive along. It winds its way through the forest there, through that green forest area, and swings away from the river and down at the bottom of the glen there. And when it comes back to the river, if you look really closely, you'll see it crosses a bridge. Where it crosses the bridge, the path then splits. From there, it's not such a long black line, it's smaller dashes. So rather than being a vehicle track, we're now onto a trail or footpath. You take the left-hand split until you get to the next split in the path where there's another stream, and then you take the right-hand split, and that should be taking you uphill with a stream on your left-hand side, traveling roughly north until you come out of the forest. From there, the trail is gently climbing because it's crossing a few of the contour lines, the brown lines that mark the shape of the land on there. But either side of you is a huge towering mountain terrain. So unless your hands on the slope in front of you climbing steeply uphill, then you can't be going too far wrong, really. Within that section there, you'll notice the next thing that happens is the little continuous dashes of the trail actually start to split up, and there's a few missing. So Harvey Maps, who make all our maps, are amazing at showing the difference between a really good path on the ground versus this intermittent path, as they call it. So you know that for that section of the route, there'll be a bit of a path, it'll come and it'll go, and you know what you're expecting to see. So you might well be following your watch, but what your watch can't tell you is there supposed to be something on the ground in front of me? If you know you're supposed to be on a good trail and you're bashing through the heather, then it's worth spending a bit of time looking around. If you're expecting this sort of intermittent path, then it's worth looking at the other features. So where is that stream that the path roughly follows? So spend a bit of time until you can pick out all these details, and it is literally about sort of say what you see, look at what the map is showing you, and translate that into what it's going to look like on the ground. It's also just worth noting on there the very faint grid that's on there. They are kilometre grid squares. That's the national grid. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of distance in amongst all of that. So going through the woodland, for example, is sort of 2.5 kilometres or something there, isn't it? So you can have an idea of roughly how long that's going to take you as you're travelling through that terrain. Go for it, Liv. Next one, please. There are also lots of places where you can look at really good quality aerial photos as well. So this one is taken from the Ordnance Survey mapping, I think, with our race GPX line traced through the middle of it there. So if you spend a bit of time on this and really zoom in, you can really see the detail of what I was saying there, the good paths versus these little intermittent paths. You can see the stream that it's trying to follow, see the areas that are going to be easy to follow and the areas where it's going to be more difficult. The other thing you'll see is that no matter how carefully we try, and believe me, we try, we cannot make that GPX line exactly follow every inch of the best route through all the soft ground for 400 kilometres of the west coast of Scotland. So it's a GPX line that will help you find a route through that terrain. It is not a brain. So your GPX cannot think for you. So rather than thinking of that line on the ground as a ribbon between Fort William and Cape Wrath that you have to stand on exactly that line all the way and be following inch by inch on your watch, think of it more like a 5 or 10 meter wide corridor that your watch will keep you in, and then engage your brain to look at that terrain and think, what's the best line through this bit of ground in front of me? Which is the best path? Where am I actually trying to get to? Looking up and trying to pick out features ahead, that sort of thing. Thanks, Liv. This is a photo from that trail taken yesterday, actually. I was up on a nice little holiday in Scotland this weekend. So again, when you're looking at this, on the left-hand side of the screen, there's the old original trail that goes through there, which is what our GPX file is roughly trying to follow. You'll also see, if you can zoom in, if you watch back on the recording, on the right-hand side, there's actually a big muddy track where they've taken vehicles through this bit of ground as well. There's also some pretty wet, rough, difficult, slow, soggy terrain in between. So the GPX will do its best to take you on that left-hand trail. But yeah, the detail of that is down to you. Thanks, Liv. OS Maps is a great place to look at some of these aerial photos, and you can also give it this 3D run through. I know you can do that on Google Earth as well. And so making those slightly ambiguous contour lines become something really clear and easy to look at. So do your homework and do your research and try and work out what it's going to look like when you're on the ground. To help you do that, we still have quite a lot of 2025 Cape Wrath Ultra race maps that we've got for sale in our shop as well. So it's well worth getting hold of those now, so that you can get familiar with it before arriving at the event in May. The other thing just to note is we also provide mapping through Avenza Maps. So it's an app on your phone that will give you the graphic exactly as it looks on the paper map on your phone. So yeah, again, this is a screenshot I took in there yesterday of me on the course. You can see on the blue arrow, I'm actually going the wrong way. I'm looking east in that photo. So if that was me, I'm not quite sure where I am, and I'm racing Cape Wrath. The first thing I need to do is turn around and go back the way I was looking there. Okay, so lots of detail to help you get through when you're on the day. The other thing to start thinking about when you're getting away from being tied to just thinking about GPX are the sort of common navigational features, navigational techniques rather, that are worth thinking about. So this idea of catching features. So this is the start of day 6, where you're coming up out of Inverleigh down into Glendookery. And you can see the orange line that you're supposed to be following there. There's not much of a path in there. There's the odd little path at the beginning, and then it's some reasonably steep, quite rough ground. We are realistic that not everybody is going to be able to follow exactly the right line through their navigating to stick exactly to that orange line. But also, let's be honest, we don't really need you to. We need you to pick up the trail down by the river at the bottom. As you're traveling across that ground, it doesn't really matter which line you take, because at the bottom you've got those great catching features of a steep stream coming down from on your left hand side, and the big river Dookery at the bottom. So whatever line you take through there, those two rivers, you're going to bump into them and follow them down to the junction, and you can't really go too far wrong from there once you're on the right hand side of that river at the bottom. Thanks, Liv. The slide on the left is actually a continuation of that next bit of the map. So once you've used those two rivers initially as catching features to help draw you into that one spot where the rivers join, that river on your left, River Dookery, actually becomes a brilliant handrail feature. Again, it's pretty rough ground through there, so the exact line is quite tricky to follow. But so long as you've got that big river of River Dookery on your left, you can't go wrong navigationally. So it gives you a little bit of freedom to look in front of you and look 20 meters, 50 meters ahead, and try and find the little line through the peat hags and tussocks and heather that are in there. Same on the right hand side, we've got a really sorry, just back one. We've got a really faint little intermittent path on that right hand slide, But the thing to recognize that you're supposed to be following the stream that goes down between those two mountains. Yeah, so as long as you're always within sort of 10 or 20 meters of that stream, you're going to go the right way. Thanks, Liv. The other thing that is really useful, which we have marked in this particular spot on the official race map, is to have some way of being able to tell your altitude when you're out on the hill. So this is day 4, going around the north side of Ben A. Again, some really rough, wild, remote terrain with not much of a path. There's here and there, there's little signs that somebody might have been there before, but a lot of the time in there, it can feel pretty isolating. But once you've dropped down from the locken that's in there by the waterfalls, stay above 375 meters altitude and head east. Really, that's all you need to be able to do in there. So on your watch, having something that will quickly tell you what height you're at, descend down, keep going until you're at 375, and then through that rough terrain, try and stick roughly to that 375 meter contour line, and it'll take you around. There are other places on the map where sections, and there's a particular stream or river to cross. And before I raced in 2021, I'd been through and written on my map the height that I wanted to cross that river at, so that I knew as I was cutting across the rough terrain, I need to be another 20 meters higher, but not any more than that. Yeah, so do a little bit of homework and add those bits into your race map where you need to. Cool. What else have we got, Liv? Brilliant. So through a combination of all of those bits and pieces, what you're really trying to do for the full 400 kilometers is either in your mind, if you're good at remembering these bits and the map makes sense to you when you're looking at it, or literally with notes or marking up a copy of the map that you can get hold of now to start doing this. You've broken down the whole course into this sort of traffic light system of green sections where the navigation is really easy. On the left-hand side there, it's just a great big forestry track, and you're just going to follow that until it hits the lock-in at the checkpoint, and it's a manned checkpoint, so just keep running until you see people. And that means you can kind of switch off a little bit from navigating and think more about eating and how much your feet hurt. Other sections that are sort of yellow amber, where this is where's that? That's the start of day 7. Quite rough terrain, quite complex with the contour lines, wiggly little paths, a couple of little junctions in there, the odd little intermittent bit of path. It's not difficult, but it's the sort of place you could make a silly mistake. So if the weather was bad and the cloud was down and you couldn't really see, or if you're just really tired and you may be on your own for some reason, not see lots of other people around you, it's just a place to sort of concentrate, but it's probably okay. And then other sections like the only summit of the week on the right hand side there, Ben Dreevy, on day 7. There's actually a couple of kilometers from the top of Ben Dreevy where there's no path, no particularly obvious ground feature like a stream to follow, because yeah, it's the one time you're actually running down off the summit of a mountain. So actually that's somewhere where you might want to stop at the top of Ben Dreevy, particularly if the weather's bad. You might want to get your compass out, or you might just want to make sure you've really carefully keep an eye on your direction on your watch or your GPS unit, whatever you've got, and get that 2 kilometers exactly in the right direction, and make sure you've gone far enough to the northwest there before you turn off north to hit those little lock-ins. Because if you go too far left coming down off the mountain there's a huge area where you could walk around in circles for quite a long time before you would find a really obvious feature to help you on your way. Yeah, so you've got all that nice and clear in your mind before you go. What else have we got there? Was that the last one? That's the last one. So basically, do your homework.
Yeah, that was really good. Let me just stop sharing my screen. Thanks so much for preparing that. So we've got some questions that we've prepared that could probably answer a lot of other people's questions. But if you do have any, please pop them in the chat and Q&A, and we'll ask them at the end. I've got a couple for both of you, actually. So I'm going to start off with you, Ian, since you're all warmed up speaking. Could you give us your top 5 tips and tricks for preparing for the event? You've probably said a few of them now, but just to reiterate.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to preparation. I don't know if I could put it in a quick top 5, but do all the bits that you can do beforehand. So download your GPX file before you arrive in Scotland. Don't arrive in Scotland and trying to be Googling instructions for how your watch works. So there's our GPX, which you'll get as a confirmed final GPX within a few weeks of the event. But also before that, don't make the Cape Wrath Ultra to be the first time you've followed a GPX file anywhere. So wherever you are in the world, get in the habit of either planning your own or downloading something in your local area from Strava or wherever you might get it, and get used to that process of navigating with your watch, ideally somewhere that you're not super familiar with. That would be one, and into that comes all the systems that go with it. Race vests have got lots of pockets in them, so if you always have your map in the same pocket and your compass in your same pocket, you don't spend your whole time searching around for all these key bits and pieces. Yeah, it's a bit of a cliche, but that thing of this, there should be nothing that you do on race day that you haven't done before. I'll call that 5 top tips. There was probably 5 in there somewhere.
Nice. I've just popped the kit requirements link in the chat as well if people want to have a look at those sorts of pieces of kit that you've recommended. Duncan, in your opinion, what defines a good navigator?
Yeah, good question. I think there's obviously lots of skills that go into it, but practicing using those skills, whether it's, you know, taking a compass bearing quickly and efficiently, or you know, being able to run across pathless terrain, keeping at a certain height. These sort of skills are going to be useful. So practicing the skills, I think experience of what I would call map to ground and ground to map. So that's really that ability to look at the map, see the symbols on it, whether it's a green forest or the contours or whatever, and be able to instantly think, okay, this is what I'm expecting to see on the ground. And then you see it, you think, oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Or you see something slightly different, you think, something's not quite right. So map to ground, and similarly ground to map. So seeing something on the ground and thinking, if you're not quite sure where you are, being able to find that place on the map. So, you know, whether it's a stream that looks a certain way or a hill of a certain shape, be able to picture in your head what that should look like on your map, and then you can find where you are. So those skills. I would also say, like, particularly when you're doing your recce's and practicing, don't be afraid of making errors as well, because I think good navigators have all made a lot of mistakes, and what they've done is approach that in a really positive light and reflected on it and thought, why did I make that mistake? And that kind of embeds that idea in your brain that helps you spot when you're going off course next time. When something's not quite right, you can kind of correct it sooner rather than later, before it turns into a big mistake. So yeah, a few things there.
Oh, that's really good. I'm going to stick with you as well for the second question, because I'm just wondering, how does fatigue and things like the weather affect your navigation decision making during these like very long days on the Cape Wrath?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good one, because for sure you're not going to get 8 nice sunny days and feel as fit as a fiddle all the way along the course. You know, sometime you're going to be tired, maybe for 6 days of it you're going to be really tired, and it's going to be horrible weather at some point. The weather, I mean, there's some obvious things with the weather. If it's misty or if it's getting dark, which it could be if you're out for a really long day, that obviously makes navigation harder. You can't see the features on the ground as easily. But I think also the main thing is probably the weather and fatigue. Just they distract you. Your mind is on thinking, oh, I'm really hungry, or oh, this is a bit grim, I'm gonna get my hood around me and stuff, and you're not really looking up and looking at the features around you. So I think the best thing to do in those situations is really just be self-aware that you're getting tired or that the weather's really grim, and just use that as a little bit of a trigger to think, okay, I know it's bad, but just make sure I know where I'm going. And as Ian was saying earlier, with like the traffic lights, if it's on a nice easy forest track through the forest, then it's probably fine to like hunker down when it's raining and just plod on. But just be aware of where you actually still need to be on it with the navigation, I think.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Ian, so there's a lot of people that possibly are coming to do the Cape Wrath Ultra that have never been up to Scotland. How do runners prepare, especially international entrants, for Scottish terrain and navigational challenges?
It's difficult. I think it's worth being realistic that running in Scotland is quite different to lots of other places in the world. Like I said at the beginning, 80% of the course is on something that we would call a track or a trail. But I remember in 2018 when I ran the race the first time, getting to the end of day 2 through Neudarts and hearing an American runner say, that day said it was 30% trail. I didn't see a trail all day. Potentially, depending on where you are in the world, the definition of trail might be slightly different. So basically, anywhere you can see a line through the heather, we might call a trail. So some of that could be pretty wet, it could be pretty slippy, it could be pretty bouldery, muddy, boggy. So, and then there are the off-path sections, which will be all of that again, plus a little bit more. So there is lots of really runnable terrain. I don't want to make it sound like the whole thing is a swampy obstacle course. It's not by any means. There's a lot of really, really good running on the week, but that rough, difficult terrain, the self-navigating, the managing the weather, the managing your kit in the weather is all kind of adds up together to be quite attritional. So definitely I would focus on becoming as robust as you can rather than just as fast or as fit as you can. So that's a physical preparation thing in terms of strength training, particularly looking after your ankles and a bit of that agility, but also robust in your use of your equipment and your mindset. Everything kind of comes together in that way. But yeah, sort of robust, unbreakable is a good way to think about preparing for Cape Wrath rather than fit and fast.
We've had a question come in that's actually very similar to the next one I was going to ask you, Ian. So I'm going to kind of put them together. So I was going to ask you what happens when a participant gets lost or presses the emergency button. But Chris has asked, like, suppose he's done all his preparation, practiced his navigation, got his GPX, studied the map, he's on the course. Suddenly he realizes he doesn't know where he is. What should he do first? So I guess, what do you do first when you think you are lost? And then I guess the last resort emergency button, and what happens after that?
Yeah, okay. So it's definitely a stage-by-stage process, isn't it? Hopefully the first thing you do isn't pull out your tracker and press the big red button. It depends a little bit on how you are navigating, what's your sort of style and confidence and experience of navigating. For a lot of people, it's just, that situation will happen 30 times every day, and the first thing they'll do is just look at their watch and go, oh, I'm supposed to be over there somewhere. If you've got some sort of digital GPS system, if you're not quite sure, then actually the answer is very easy to get to. If you're able to use your phone, then the Avenza app that will send you before the route, that picture that I put in the screen, you just get a nice little blue dot, shows you where you are on the map and which direction you're pointing. Super useful, and you can really easily correct. It's worth recognizing that whatever type of phone you've got, if it's a cold, wet day, even if your phone's waterproof, if the screen is covered in rain and you've got a really cold finger, it's not going to work. So actually thinking about your phone as being this amazing worst case scenario backup doesn't necessarily work that well. If you keep it in a waterproof case and you're able to keep it warm and you're a bit more careful about it, it's definitely better. But if you're totally reliant on GPS technology to be your backup, then maybe having a dedicated GPS unit rather than just your phone might be more appropriate for you. If I'm answering this question with somebody that's full map and compass, then brilliant. You've got an adventure on your hands and a great opportunity to practice those skills. So I would start thinking about how I got where I am, what's happened in the last 10 minutes, half an hour. So just thinking about that bit of map that I had on the screen earlier. Are you in the forest? How far out of the forest you've come? I would always think about what I can see around me in terms of nice linear features like paths or fences that are marked on your map, or rivers. Am I on the left of them? Am I on the right of them? And also for all of those things, what direction are they heading in? On that map I showed, if you're on a good bit of river and it's heading north, or a good bit of river that's heading sort of southwest, very quickly you'd be able to say, oh, I've followed the wrong bit of river. I'm supposed to be going north. I must be heading off down this other glen. So think about direction all the time as well. Hopefully that gives you a bit of a very quick summary. If you then completely exhausted all your options and you've got no idea where you are and you feel that you need to get some help, then that's where the tracking system comes in. So for Cape Wrath, a lot of the terrain that you'll go through has no mobile phone signal at all. So the trackers that we use are called Yellow Brick. It's the company that provide them. So they're fully satellite based. Unlike a lot of trackers, you'll get in races that use a mobile phone signal to communicate. This is all done satellite based. So wherever you are on the course, we'll always be able to get communication with you. They also have more than just a big red button. So if you've had a nasty accident and you've really hurt yourself and you want to press a big red button and it goes straight to us as an emergency call, then by all means do that. But in this situation, we've also got there are a couple of options within the tracker that you can kind of send a little help message. You can only we can then send you a longer text reply, or you'll only be able to reply yes or no to our questions, but quite quickly we'll be able to get some help and get some advice to you that way. And it might be we can give you some instructions and send you back in the right direction, tell you to go downhill. You're going uphill, you've got to go downhill and then do something else. Or it might be that one of our mountain rescue response teams or mountain safety teams that are in the area come and help you and come and find you.
Cool. Excellent. So Duncan, what are some of the most common navigational mistakes you see runners make?
Yeah, I would say not having a plan, not knowing what's coming up next, I'd say is quite a big one. So not knowing that, in a couple of 100 meters, you're going to take the right fork on the track, and then you're daydreaming and you just go off the wrong way. And, even if you're following your GPS on your watch, and maybe once you've gone 50 meters in the wrong direction, it's going to start beeping at you. That's 50 meters extra that you didn't really want to do, plus going back again, and add that up over several days. So yeah, not knowing what's coming up next and not concentrating as well, I'd say, is the other big one. So just either your mind's on something else when it's a tricky bit of navigation, and I'd say being distracted as well, actually, by others. Don't necessarily assume that anyone else you see out there ahead of you is going the right way, because they may not be. So yeah, make sure you're kind of owning your own navigation and making your own decisions. And by all means, if you see someone else going the same way as you, that's great confirmation. And if you see someone going a different way though to what you think, don't necessarily assume they're right. Just double check it yourself. Yeah,
good answer. And why shouldn't you follow the GPX?
Well, I think maps are amazing. I mean, you just look at the Harvey's map, it's kind of a work of art. I think it's just beautiful things, and I think it just lets you really appreciate the whole of this journey in the terrain you're going through. So rather than just being like myopically focused on this narrow corridor that your GPX breadcrumbs might be taking you through, you're actually appreciating everything around you. And I think you just get so much more out of it. You can see this big peak up there, and you can look on the map and say, oh, that's that one. And you know what's coming up. You got a sense of do I need to, maybe conserve a bit of energy here because there's a big climb coming up, or thinking about, when's the next best time for me to have a bite to eat whilst I'm on the move. Well, it's probably going to be that easy bit of trail that I know is coming in a mile's time, rather than right now when I'm in the middle of a bog. So
Yeah.
the GPX is great for keeping you on track, and it'll beat when you're going off track. But I think you get so much more out of the whole journey and the experience if you use your map.
Absolutely. Then you can frame it at the end.
Indeed, yep.
So I've just got one more, and then we'll move on to the questions that people have been putting in. How does a company like Ourea Events help runners not only build their confidence and skills, but also achieve their goals?
Well, I think that Ian's obviously already talked about a lot of the safety systems we've had, like the tracking and the SOS button, and we've got response teams. Hopefully, the vast majority of you never need those systems, but they're there. We do try and cultivate a community of runners who are going to help each other. So there's Facebook groups and Strava groups. You can find friends. You can, say when you're maybe going for a recce run, and maybe there's some other people there as well, and share the experience. We've also got webinars like this to share a few tips and tricks. There, obviously, on the Cape Wrath, we've got the hatchling option as well. So some people, in fact, quite a lot of people set out thinking they're going to do the whole thing, but it's not a complete disaster. If you have a bad day, maybe you get timed out, you can do the hatchling for a day or two, maybe go back onto full course later in the week. And also everything we do at the overnight camps, it's kind of geared towards helping you get through the race. So all the food we provide, putting the tents up for you, a nice communal marquee, all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, lots of things. We really want you to achieve your potential and get to that lighthouse at the end of the Cape Wrath Trail. So yeah, we're kind of in this with you, really trying our best to get you there.
Yeah, I've just popped in as well into the chat the Cape Wrath YouTube channel and the 2025 playlist with all the videos from this year, which we followed 3 people each day throughout the whole journey. So there's quite a lot of stories in there of all different backgrounds and demographics, and seeing why they're running the Cape Wrath and how their journey went. So it is good to see the community vibe come out at each campsite and everyone helping each other and making lifelong friends. It's really nice to see.
And I think a real variety of people that are all doing it for different reasons, different motivations at different performance levels. Yeah, I think it's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. We actually had a webinar with the 2 winners from 2025, which are also in that playlist, chatting about their experience. But it's nice to see people of like doing the Explorer, people doing the full course, and yeah, not just the winners. I see, Ian, you've answered Richard's question in the chat, but just in case anyone else probably wants to know, will next year's event be exactly the same route as this year, with like changes to campsites or route updates?
If I could get my crystal ball out and have a quick look, I will let you know immediately. There's nothing significant that we know about. The route is relatively well established now, but every year we make little tweaks and changes to it for various reasons. Last year, one of our campsites moved to a better site in Kinlochheugh, for example, but also one big storm could totally change a piece of forestry and we'd have to divert around it. So there's nothing going to be fundamentally different. We're not going to start adding in a couple of 100 Munros on the way, although I'd quite like to. That would be quite a different race. But yeah, don't assume that it'll be exactly the same. So certainly when it comes to the event, make sure you've got the 2026 final GPX files and all that sort of stuff, which will be really clear before we come to the event. But in terms of your planning and preparation, if you do all of that on a 2025 race map, it'll set you up really well. There's not going to be huge differences.
Mm-hmm.
I've just put a link in the chat as well for where you can get hold of that 2025 race map. So just to be clear, when you get to registration for the 2026 event, as part of your entry, you'll get the 2026 map with all the latest route on it. But as Ian said before, getting hold of the previous map it's just nice to get familiar with it and have a look at it. Maybe take it on a recce if you're going for a recce. So yeah, you can buy them on our shop today.
Duncan, when well, David is asking in the chat, when do they get the hard copy of the map?
You get it at so the 2026 version you'll get at registration.
At registration.
Yeah. I see someone's also asked about the map on Avenza. You can't get the 2025 version on Avenza anymore. That's not available. For next year, I think we make it available a week or two in advance of the event, 2026 version, around the same time that we say this is the finalized route.
Good. Okay, so we've got Ruth has asked, I use a silver arc thumb compass for orienteering rather than a base plate compass. Kit list says compass. Does a thumb compass meet requirements, or do I need a base plate compass?
I would personally, I would say if you're confident you can take a bearing with it and you can navigate with it, then it's probably good enough.
And the sort of overarching Ourea Events clothing and equipment guidance backs you up on that. I've put the link to the page, but you'll find that within the Cape Wrath Ultra kit list page. There's also a link that will take you to our main equipment guidance page. So if you're not sure about any of your kit, if you've got questions about this waterproof, that waterproof, this compass, that compass, any of that, we've got a huge big long page there that gives some examples of what will and won't. So that's pretty clear. The compass must be a full-sized magnetic base plate compass. A specialized thumb compass for skilled orienteers familiar with their use is acceptable. And then it gives examples of things that are not acceptable.
Excellent. Good tips, everybody. That is all the questions that we've had in so far. Is there anything you guys feel, Duncan and Ian, that you'd want to tell someone doing the Cape Wrath for the first time, or an Ourea event for the first time, before they come on one of our events next year?
I think I would say just look forward to it. I think it's amazing. It's an amazing route, the Cape Wrath Trail, like it's wilderness, past some amazing scenery and terrain. Just really look forward to it. Don't be daunted by the navigation. The other thing we haven't really mentioned actually is that, like, there's however many hundred of you on the event. A lot of people form really great friendships and relationships with kind of tent buddies and whatever. They run together during the day and, you know, use each other and look after each other out there on the trail, and you can get a lot out of it. Equally, you know, respect people who just want to run on their own. That's fine too. But yeah, I think you should really look forward to it. It's an amazing event, and kind of wish I was doing it myself. Sadly, I've got to help on it.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, I would just say be careful because it might change your life.
Is that what it did for you?
You never know where you might end up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could end up working for the company that you won one of their races for in 2021.
Yeah, it's the Cape Wrath Ultra is definitely still far and away my favourite race event that I've ever done. It's it's quite a place.
That's a good place to end it. Everybody, thank you so much for coming and joining the webinar. You will receive a recording probably immediately after we conclude. I will also put it on the YouTube channel, but also feel free if you do have any questions, just pop them into Cape Wrath Ultra. And everyone, thank you, Duncan and Ian, for sharing your wisdom with the rest of us.
No problem.
Pleasure. See you all in May.
Yep. See you then.
See you all in May. Bye.